Welcome back to another edition of the Celtics Roundtable Podcast, part of the CLNS Radio Network. I'm Jonathan Ignall. With me today, we have Evan Valenti and my brother Matt. The Celtics beat the Pacers by a score of 109-100 on Tuesday night. It was a strong offensive display for the Celtics, aside from some sloppy turnovers, while on the other end, the Pacers' body language and effort was as suspect as Miles Turner's jump shot was. Matt, let's start with you. No Jonas Jerebko, no Terry Rozier, and no Gerald Green tonight. Do you think this may just be what the rotation may look like come playoff time?
They're going to shorten it, but Brad Stevens never really fully commits to shortening the rotation too much. I mean, he always, throws in Tyler Zeller for a little bit, and Terry Rozier's never on the bench for, more than a game or two. Jerebko hasn't had a great couple of months recently, but he's too versatile to stay on the bench for long.
Evan, you've been on Zeller Island from day one. How does it feel to be a proud owner of some space on Zeller Island? I'm sure it might get flooded.
I'm the only space located on Zeller Island, man. Look, he has a role. Like everybody on this team has a role, and they're very defined. And Tyler Zeller's is to rim run, get rebounds, and hopefully finish at the basket. And sometimes when he gets some playing time, like tonight, 10 minutes, he was rock solid. He was 6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, a block. Poor Al Jefferson on that block. Al has no lift anymore. When you get blocked by Tyler Zeller, that means you have no lift anymore, and that was embarrassing for Al.
Well, how about the main story of the game? I mean, the Celtics locked down Indiana in the first half. In fact, Indiana, I'm pretty sure, wouldn't have scored at all if it weren't for, 12 or 13 turnovers in that first half. It's just a continuation of the great defense that Boston has played since the All-Star break. They're now probably in the top 10 in defense, although there isn't too much separation between 10th and 20th, but it's still impressive given how poorly the Celtics looked at the beginning of the season. I think they actually started out at being dead last in defense, but they're all healthy now. I think Avery Bradley's made a huge difference, playing his best ball of the season over the last few weeks. Poor Paul George, 37 points, including 5 threes. He cooled off a little bit at the end, but he had an incredible load tonight on offense, and the Pacers never really got within striking distance of the Celtics despite his 37 points. It's disappointing, and you can sort of see why he might be itching to get out the door. This Pacers team, you heard in that Zach Lowe article, what is this team's identity? It's hard to figure it out.
Yeah, we'll get to Paul George, I'm sure, later on in this podcast or later on in the next one. But, just as Jonathan said at the beginning, the body language is really bad. I think the Celtics are a really bad matchup for this Pacers team because of the way they can spread them out. I mean, look at Paul George at 37, Jeff Teague had 25, and everybody else sucked. Thad Young had 8, C.J. Miles had 5, Miles Turner had 7. Lavoy Allen with a great rebounding game off the bench, only 8 points, but a great rebounding effort for him. Monte only was 2 of 10. He had 5 points. I mean, the offense, I don't know where the offense comes from for Indiana if Monte Ellis is not playing well and Aaron Brooks can't find lanes and open shots. And I just think the Celtics are a much better team than Indiana is. Boston turned the ball over 14 times in the first half, and that's the only reason why this game was even remotely close to begin with. If Boston takes better care of the back, and we heard about how Brad shoot out everybody at halftime, because defensively, I agree with you, Matthew. I thought they looked really great. The first quarter, they looked great. Second quarter, spectacular. Let up in the third because they were just blowing them out. And in the fourth, it was just a war of attrition at that point. But this is a Celtics team that matches up very well against Indiana. Indiana does not have the firepower, doesn't have the depth. Boston's just a better basketball team. And when you add that to the bad body language currently on Indiana, you're going to get a blowout. And unfortunately for Boston, it didn't happen that way. But a win's a win, and you'll take it at this point.
Yeah, sadly, it feels like Indiana's just that classic in NBA purgatory type team. They have a superstar who's not too happy. He's probably leaving. Miles Turner's a nice player. I think he's going to be a really good player, but he's not there yet. And aside from that, what else do they really have? I thought they had the coach. They let him go to Orlando. They don't have the pieces. They're not going to draft that high. I don't really know where they go from here.
Well, I'm sure they're hoping that Paul George makes an NBA team so that he can get that designated player exception and thus get a $200 million contract from the Pacers that no other team can offer him, but that's still very much up in the air. But he's had a really good second half of the season. It's very difficult to figure out what this team is, what they can really hang their hat on, aside from Jeff Teague pick and rolls and Paul George working in isolation or coming off screens. But back to the Celtics for a second. I thought Jay Crowder was excellent, had a great two-way game. Avery Bradley as well. Isaiah Thomas started slow, but he really poured it on. But the biggest surprise to me is Kelly Olynyk. He was great, but he played 31 minutes. What was the last time we've seen Kelly crack that 30 mark? But he deserved it with his play and on the defensive end. So we got good Kelly tonight.
The last time he played 31 minutes was that blowout against the Bulls. So if that'll tell you anything about him playing 31 minutes, sometimes it comes in garbage time. But Kelly's been a really good rebounder the last two games. And 11 rebounds for Kelly against Washington. Of course, remember that, the 9-11 game. 8 rebounds against Indiana. Again, this is an effort thing. Like, Boston has clearly said, we need to be better on this end. We need to focus more on this end. And like you see it, distributed all the way throughout the roster. It's easier for a guy like Kelly to impress you in that fold because he just doesn't do that. And it hasn't done that the entire season. Like Al Horford, it feels like a sort of a revelation, him getting 8 rebounds in a game, 3 of them on the offensive glass. Like, it feels sort of like a revelation. Same with Jay Crowder. Boston tonight didn't out-rebound Indiana, but was, close, 45-43. But you're just starting to see some effort in different places. And Kelly Olynyk's one of the places where when it does show up, it's a glaring difference.
It's not just Kelly Olynyk. It seems like a real team effort. Jay Crowder's been a beast on the boards, Avery Bradley as well. Jaylen Brown's rebounding better. He's making much more concerted effort to get there. And, the things that we talked about that we wanted to see this team get better at is rebounding and defense. And, yeah, maybe the offense has taken a slight step back, but I think that's more just riding Isaiah, and his fourth quarter numbers haven't been what they were in that super hot 2-month-long streak he had, but all encouraging signs. All right. Today's Roundtable podcast is being brought to you by the SeatGeek ticketing app. I actually just used SeatGeek just yesterday to purchase some Boston Celtics Miami Heat tickets for this upcoming Sunday, and it was by far the easiest ticket purchasing experience I've had. If you're looking for some Boston Celtics playoff tickets, SeatGeek is the smartest and easiest way to get to the game. With SeatGeek's seamless mobile experience, you can buy and sell tickets in just 2 taps. And it doesn't end with just the Celtics or any other playoff game. SeatGeek also has plenty of concerts, comedy, and theater tickets available too. And it's all fully guaranteed. Listeners to CLNS Radio can support this production and get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. Here's how. Download the free SeatGeek app, go to the Settings tab, and click Add a Promo Code and enter promo code CELTSNEWS, all one word. And SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. Download the free SeatGeek app and enter the promo code CELTSNEWS today. If you take out the crazy Phoenix game where Tyler Ulis stripped Isaiah and hit the game winner, and the night where they didn't really show up against, or the day they didn't show up against Philadelphia, they're as hot as anybody in the second half.
I think so. I mean, I think they're racing for that number 1 seed. It's definitely in play. I'm looking at 5:38 here, and as we're recording this, the Cavs are down big to Denver at halftime. But this says here, Celtics 49% chance of gaining that top seed. It's definitely in play, and it's really encouraging just to see the defense come forward because contra Zaire. This team is built for defense. Danny Ainge said as much last week that that's something that they have to hang their hat on. We knew they were capable of it, and it's great to see them put it together. I mean, obviously, we hope that the offense remained as good as it was, when Isaiah was going for 50. But this is what this team is, and I think they've raised their ceiling a little bit with this improved defensive play because we already knew what they could do on the offensive end, and now to see it come together on the defensive end, really, really great.
The Celtics are one of 3 teams in both offensive, top 10 in offensive and defensive rating. The other 2 being the Spurs and the Warriors. So they're in very good company right now, and they're playing their best basketball. And it kind of, for me, has a lot to do with like the improved play, I think, of Al Horford, who has just been really aggressive pretty much since the All-Star break. And look at these numbers since the All-Star break. The first game back after that game against Cleveland. The first game back was against Toronto, but if you take that first game of the month against Cleveland, 15.6 points per game, 7.4 rebounds, 5.6 assists, which are highs for any month that Al has had this entire season. He's ridiculous. The ball movement thing.
Evan, you say that though, like those are barely above his season averages. I think like he is Mr. Consistent.
Well, no, but the 8 assists, like this has become a big thing where Al just racks up the most assists on the team every game. His improved play this month has really been one of the biggest storylines. Like if we do Celtics power rankings at any point this week, like he's going to be my number one on the list, and I'm going to get fought at. You guys are going to fight me for it, and I don't care. I think he's just been the best player on the team the whole month.
Do we want to move on to some potential playoff matchups?
Is there an ideal one for you, Matt, for your first round?
I don't want any part of Atlanta if that were to happen. And you know they're not the Pacers aren't far behind Atlanta, but you know Indiana tonight. You know, they didn't show anything to really scare me. I mean, Paul George had a great scoring game, despite a few key misses down the stretch. But yeah, I don't think they have the horses to run with the Celtics. I think the Heat. I mean, the Celtics have won their last 7 games against the Heat and have pretty much neutralized Whiteside in basically all those games. Isaiah Thomas seems to destroy the Pistons every time he takes the floor. The Bucks, you know, they'd be a little bit scarier with Jabari Parker. Now they have Middleton. I'm a little worried about like Giannis making like a playoff leap. But I think Chris Forsberg came out with a tweet earlier that said their chances of playing the Pacers, the Bucks, the Pistons, and the Heat. It's all about even. With I think the Pacers slightly in the lead there. But you know, I think the Celtics should be favored in 5 or 6 games against basically all of these teams. That would be my thought. And I know you guys are going to say the Bulls here, but I think they're fading.
The Bulls are bad. That's why I love to play the Bulls in the first round because they're just bad. And then, again, you talk about body language. The game that Boston played them the other day where they blew them out by like 30, body language is really awful for Chicago.
And no Dwayne Wade, that helps.
Yeah, that does too.
Because there's always that worry about him just, you know, flipping the script in the playoffs as he did last year.
Or getting somebody hurt.
That's right, yeah.
Hurting Isaiah Thomas at some point. Not like that bothers me or anything.
Well, they have Robin Lopez too, so watch out.
I like Rolo though. I like Rolo. I can hang. But you look at some of the road records of these teams. In Indiana, 11-25, just really bad on the road. You
think that's noise though? Like they're really good at home, they're really bad on the road. To me, that's more noise than signal.
Well, out of all the teams that are in that vicinity, they are the worst team on the road.
Okay.
Like if Milwaukee's like I don't want to play Milwaukee just because I'm terrified of Giannis.
I feel like Detroit has something of a high ceiling if they could get it together. They've been in just sort of like a funk this year. Maybe they could pull themselves out of it when the game is really important. Reggie Jackson, you know, has his chemistry with Drummond wasn't what it was last year. Yeah, now that I think about it, even though the Celtics have kind of had the Pistons number and Isaiah Thomas seems to light them up every time he plays them, I still think they kind of have a higher ceiling than most of these teams. They do have a fair amount of talent on that roster.
Yeah, if Reggie Jackson decides to go off, or, you know, heaven forbid, KCP kills the Celtics again, like, yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
Over a 7-game series, the only team that scares me in this range, I exclude the Hawks from this range. I just think they're a step above the 6 through 8 squad.
They're not really, though. They're only a game and a half up on Indiana.
With the record, they're a better team. I mean, look at Indiana.
I'm just saying, it's not like they're far away here.
If I had to pick one team I'd like to see, I think it would be Chicago, just because of the lack of NBA quality players and players who are past their prime. Just there's nothing really there besides Jimmy Butler. They just remind me of a worse version of the Pacers, as Paul George has just a bunch of nobodies around him. The Chicago Bulls have way less than that. So I don't think that's the range that scares me. The only one's the Bucks.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for us here at Celtics Roundtable Podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. For Matthew Ignall, Evan Valenti, I'm Jonathan Ignall. See you guys tomorrow.